They say some stories should never be told, but every once in a while one surfaces that refuses to stay buried. What you're about to hear is based on true events, reconstructed from what was found, what was recorded, and what was never meant to be uncovered. Turn the lights off, put on your headphones. This is a true horror story. They say working with the dead gets easier over time. It doesn't. You just learn how to stop looking them in the eyes. My name's Daniel Holt, and for the last 12 years I've worked as a mortician, first in Portland, now in a small Ohio town called Hollow Creek. I took the job after my wife passed away. Thought the quiet would help me forget. It didn't. The funeral home sat at the end of a winding road that disappeared into the woods. No streetlights, no neighbors, just an old 2-story building with flaking white paint and a half-lit neon sign that read, Hollow Creek Funeral Services. The K in Creek never worked. When I arrived, it was raining, the kind of steady, cold drizzle that seeps into your bones. Inside, the air smelled like disinfectant and old wood polish. The owner, Mr. Granger, greeted me with a handshake so cold it felt damp. Glad you're here, Holt. I've been running this place alone since last spring. Why'd the last guy leave? I asked. Didn't, he said, forcing a smile. He just stopped showing up. That should have been my first warning. The prep room was in the basement, low ceilings, concrete floors, and a hum from the refrigeration units that never stopped. I'd worked in plenty of places before, but this one felt different. The walls seemed to hold sound too long, like they didn't want to let it go. That first week, the work was routine. Embalming, dressing, presentation. But then came Case 47A, the one that changed everything. A young man, 23, car accident. The sheriff dropped the body off personally. Found him on Hollow Creek Road, he said. No ID, no plates, just this tattoo. He showed me a mark behind the man's ear, a small circle with a vertical line through it. It looked like a brand, faintly burned into the skin. I didn't think much of it until the next one came in. 4 days later, a woman, heart failure, natural causes. Except she had the same mark, in the same spot. I mentioned it to Granger, trying to sound casual. Strange coincidence, huh? He didn't look up from his paperwork. You see things when you work too long down there. That night, after I finished embalming, I went to the cooler to check on both bodies. The light flickered when I opened the door. The young man's drawer, the first one, was slightly ajar. I froze. Now, I'm not the kind of man who spooks easy. Death's a patient I've seen 1,000 times. But something about that open drawer felt wrong. Not like it had shifted, but like it had been pulled open from the inside. I pushed it shut, made sure the latch clicked, and told myself it was just the temperature shift warping the metal. Still, when I walked out, I swear I heard a whisper. It was faint, soft, almost childlike, but clear enough to make my stomach twist. Not again. By the end of that month, 4 more bodies came through. Different ages, different causes of death, all with that same mark behind their ear. I started keeping notes in my logbook, drawing each symbol by hand, tracking locations and dates. The more I wrote, the more it felt like I was being watched. Not by someone, but by the building itself. There's something about being alone in a funeral home after midnight. The silence isn't empty, it moves. You start hearing things you can't record. A sigh behind you, a shoe scuff from the next room, soft metal creaking when nothing's there. I used to hum to fill the quiet. Now, I just listen. One morning while cleaning out Granger's office, I found an old photograph tucked behind a file cabinet. It showed the funeral home sometime in the 1950s. Same sign, same road. But on the front steps stood a group of men in black suits, and behind them, a symbol carved into the doorframe. That same circle with a vertical line. When I asked Granger about it, he went pale. You shouldn't go looking through old things, he said. Why not? Because some of us are still trying to forget what they meant. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that mark glowing faintly, like burned iron, behind my eyelids. And when I went downstairs for water around 2 a.m., I noticed the lights in the prep room were already on. Granger's car wasn't outside. No one else was supposed to be here. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, hand on the rail, trying to listen. For a moment, it was completely silent. Then, from below, the unmistakable sound of drawers opening one by one. Not slamming, sliding, deliberate. Then, faintly, a voice, raspy, strained, from somewhere in the dark. It's not the same body anymore. The next morning I told myself it had to be a dream, sleep deprivation, overwork, logical explanations. But when I went down to the prep room again, 3 of the storage drawers were slightly open. Each held one of the bodies marked with that same symbol. I checked the latches twice. They hadn't been forced. Something, or someone, had opened them from the inside. When I turned around, Granger was standing by the door, his expression unreadable. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said quietly. "What the hell's going on here? You really don't want the answer." He left before I could press further. Later that night, I went back to his office. Granger kept meticulous records, embalming times, clients, names, everything, all logged in a series of thick, leather-bound ledgers. But when I looked for this year's, it wasn't on the shelf. I found it locked in a desk drawer. Inside were pages full of entries I'd never seen before. Dates, names, causes of death, and next to each one a small mark, the same symbol, and at the bottom of every page, written in the same fine penmanship, "Debt repaid." Then I turned to the back pages. No names, just blank spaces, and one final line that read, "Next due, Daniel Holt." That night, around 3 a.m., the funeral home's phone rang. The sound cut through the stillness like a scream. "Hollow Creek Funeral Services," I answered, voice shaky, static. Then a woman's voice, hoarse, desperate. "Don't let him put you in the ledger." I froze. "Who is this?" But she was already gone. The line went dead. And for the first time, I noticed something I hadn't before. The faint sound of breathing coming from the second line. By then, curiosity had burned straight through my fear. If Granger was hiding something, I needed to see it. I went downstairs again, flashlight in hand. The smell hit me first. Not decay, not formaldehyde. Something else, like burnt paper and copper. At the far end of the room, behind a rusted shelving unit, I noticed a section of wall that didn't match the rest. New concrete, smoother, like it had been sealed recently. Beside it, a pile of old photo negatives. When I held one up to the light, I saw faces, dozens of them, but their eyes were blacked out with ink. Under each, a name I didn't recognize. Then I heard footsteps overhead, slow, deliberate. Someone was pacing directly above the basement, in the embalming room. I killed the flashlight and listened. The sound stopped, then started again, this time descending the stairs. The air grew colder with every step, and when the light finally fell across the stairwell, it wasn't Granger. It was the young man from the accident, the one from case 47A, still pale, still stitched, but standing. His eyes were empty, his mouth slightly open, as if he wanted to speak but couldn't remember how. He turned his head toward me and raised one shaking hand. That mark, the circle and line, was glowing faintly beneath his skin. Then I heard it again, in that same low whisper that had haunted me before. "It's not the same body anymore." I bolted upstairs, heart hammering, and found Granger waiting in the hall. He didn't look surprised to see me, and only tired. "Now you know," he said softly. "What the hell did you do to them?" "Not me," he said. "Them." He pointed to the old photograph I'd found earlier, the one from the 1950s. "They made a pact, back when this town was dying, offered their souls for prosperity. The mark was the bond." "And you continued it?" I demanded. "Someone had to. The debt doesn't vanish, Holt. It just moves on to the next keeper." I backed away, feeling the chill of the hallway seep into my skin. "You mean me?" He didn't answer, just placed a key in my palm, the same one that opened the ledger drawer. "When the next one comes in," he said, "you'll understand." Then he turned and walked out the front door, and I never saw him again. 2 days later, the sheriff dropped off another body, female, early 30s, car crash on Hollow Creek Road. When I pulled back the sheet, my stomach dropped. It was the woman from the phone call. Behind her ear, that same circle and line, and on her right wrist, faint and nearly faded, were the words, "Don't let him put you in the ledger." I didn't report the woman's body, I should have, but something in me knew the sheriff already expected her here, the same way he expected all the others. Her skin was cold, waxy, her lips slightly parted, as if she died mid-sentence. But it was the mark behind her ear, the same circle with a vertical line, that made my chest tighten. It looked inflamed, fresh, almost new. When I leaned down to inspect it, a faint smell hit me. Burnt metal, like the mark had been seared into her right before she died. And then I saw something else. Her fingernails were cracked, broken, as if she had clawed at something in her final moments. Or someone. I looked at her hand. Under her thumbnail was dried blood. Not her own. The shade was darker. The ledger key in my pocket felt heavier than ever. My hands were trembling as I washed up. The water was warm, a comfort I didn't deserve. I splashed my face, looked at myself in the mirror, pale, exhausted, with dark circles under my eyes. And then I saw it, just below my left ear, a faint red irritation, the start of the same circular mark. I froze. My throat tightened. I leaned closer. It wasn't a rash. It wasn't a cut. It was symmetrical, a perfect outline, as if fingertips, small, cold fingertips, had pressed there in the night. My breath fogged the mirror, and when I wiped it away, I saw a second reflection behind me. A small silhouette, standing in the prep room doorway. I spun around. It vanished. But the door was still gently swinging. Something had been there. Something small. Something watching. That night, I went back to Granger's office. I unlocked the ledger again, not caring what I might find. Every page was identical, a list of deaths paired with the symbol. But on one page, the oldest page, the ink was darker, heavier, as if someone had pressed hard enough to tear the paper. January 3rd, 1954. 32 children entrusted, 1 debt required. The keeper will choose. At the bottom was a name, Arthur Granger, meaning the Granger I knew wasn't the first keeper. He was the last in a long line, and now it was my turn. Around 2:14 a.m., I heard it again, the soft creak of a door upstairs. Not the front door, a smaller one. I grabbed a flashlight, even though I knew it wouldn't help, and went to check. The hallway was pitch black except for a sliver of moonlight coming through the window, and standing right in the center of that light was a child, a small boy, barefoot, head slightly tilted. His skin was pale, not dead, but empty, like someone had drained the color out of him. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his neck. His neck had the mark burned so deeply it glowed faintly in the dark. He whispered, without moving his lips, "You weren't supposed to open the ledger." My hand shook so hard the flashlight nearly slipped. "What are you?" He blinked slowly. Empty, hollow eyes. "We are what he chose." "Who?" The boy raised one thin finger and pointed to the basement. "The first one. The one who made the deal." And then he said something that froze me from head to toe. "You're next, Daniel Holt. You've already been touched." When I backed into the prep room, the temperature had dropped so sharply my breath came out in clouds. All the drawers were open again, every single one. And from inside them, from deep inside, I heard breathing. Not shallow, dead air escaping lungs, but slow, calm, patient breathing, like they were waiting, like they had all the time in the world. I stumbled toward the stair and stopped dead. On the wall, written in dark, wet streaks, were 4 words. Keep your place, Holt. But the worst part? The handwriting was mine. I ran upstairs out the front door into the cold rain. My hands shook as I fumbled for my car keys. The mark behind my ear pulsed, a dull, rhythmic ache, like a heartbeat under my skin. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered on instinct, static. Then a strained whisper, a woman's voice, terrified. You have 1 chance left. If you stay there tonight, you won't leave. The line clicked dead. And when I looked up, the funeral home lights flickered. Then one by one, every light in the building turned on at once, even the basement, as if the whole place had opened its eyes. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. By the time I finally gathered the courage to go back inside, the front steps were slick with mud and dead leaves. The lights were still on, glowing an unnatural yellow through the storm, too steady to be power from the grid. I didn't even remember unlocking the front door. It just opened when I touched the handle like it was waiting for me. Inside, the air was damp, heavy with the smell of earth and formaldehyde. Every clock in the building had stopped at 2:14 a.m., the exact time I'd seen the child in the hall. And there, on the floor of the entryway, lay the ledger. Open, pages fluttering, though there was no wind. On the newest page, written in that same perfect script, was my name, Daniel Holt. Next to it, the word accepted. I should have run, driven until I saw daylight. But something about that word, accepted, rooted me in place. I walked toward the basement. The door creaked open before I touched it. The light inside flickered, steadying only when I reached the bottom step. Every table was covered in white sheets. Dozens of them. Each sheet rose and fell slightly, like there was breath underneath. And then from the far corner of the room, a voice. Do you see it now? Granger stepped out of the shadows. But his face, it wasn't the same. His skin was ashen, stretched too thin, his eyes hollow, reflecting no light. You left, I said. I watched you leave. I never left, he replied. Keepers don't leave, they pass it on. He gestured toward the far wall, the section of smooth concrete I'd found before. It was cracked open now, revealing a narrow doorway behind it. A faint red glow pulsed from within. You can fight it, I said. He smiled faintly. That's what the last one said. The air grew hotter the closer I got. Inside was a small windowless chamber lined with child-sized coffins, 32 of them. The lids were carved with that same circle and line mark. Each coffin was sealed in wax except one, the smallest. A faint whisper drifted from inside it. I reached out, fingers trembling, and lifted the lid. Inside lay a boy, the same boy from the hall. His eyes opened slowly. He made a deal, the boy said. We were the offering. Who made it? I whispered. He pointed toward the ceiling. Through the cracks in the plaster, I could hear something moving, dragging, above us. The first keeper. He's still here. Then the boy's body convulsed, mouth stretching unnaturally wide. A deep, gurgling voice poured out, not his own. The debt was sealed in blood. The mark is the seal. You carry it now. The ceiling split open with a groan, and something dropped down into the room. A figure massive, cloaked in dark cloth that shimmered like wet ash. Its face was hidden behind an antique mortician's mask, cracked, rusted, with glass lenses over hollow sockets. Its hands were gloved, but the skin beneath was wrong. Gray, ropey, veined like roots. It stepped closer, each movement echoing through the stone floor. Daniel Holt, the thing rasped. The last keeper broke the chain. The debt demands a name. You won't get mine, I said. It tilted its head. Then give me another. Behind me, the wall began to shift. The coffins opened one by one, not with violence, but with purpose. Children stood up, silent, watching. Each had the mark burned into their necks, faintly glowing, each one waiting. The thing reached toward me. "A soul for a soul," it whispered. "You can leave if you choose another." I realized then what Granger had done, what every keeper had done before me. They'd chosen someone to take their place, to bear the mark, to feed the debt. The ledger on the table fluttered open again. Its blank page shimmered, ready for ink. All I had to do was write a name. I could feel the pen in my pocket. My hand twitched. Then I thought of my wife. Her funeral, her peace, her absence of fear. And I understood. "No," I said. "It ends here." I tore the page from the ledger, held it up and struck a match. The paper curled, blackened, and burst into flame. The mark on my skin seared white-hot, pain so sharp I thought I'd pass out. The children screamed as the fire spread, light swallowing the red glow, the coffins, the walls, everything. And just before the darkness took me, the creature's voice hissed in my ear. "You can't burn a debt, Daniel. You can only delay it." They found me 2 days later on the roadside near Hollow Creek. The funeral home was gone. Foundation, walls, everything. Like it had never existed. The sheriff called it an electrical fire. But I saw his eyes when he spoke. He already knew that wasn't true. They treated my burns at the hospital. I told them it happened in the woods. But when they cleaned the skin behind my ear, they found the mark. Still there, faintly glowing beneath the gauze. Some nights I hear a phone ring, the same old landline tone. When I answer, there's only static. And beneath it, a whisper. The ledger's empty again. Time to fill it. End. If this story kept you watching, there's another real horror waiting for you. Click on the screen. And don't watch it alone.